members of the public joining us in person and on YouTube. Welcome to Budget Deliberations 2026. I'd ask Mr. Beauchamp to take the roll call, please.
Thank you, Warden. Deputy Warden Agar. Here. Thank you. Councillor Atkinson. Thank you. Councillor Bouchy. Here. Councillor Bradley.
Present.
Councillor Broad. Present. Councillor Case. Present. Councillor Cook. Present. Councillor Dennis. Present. Councillor Ferguson. Present. Councillor Hand. Present. Councillor Loosely. Present. Councillor McRoberts. Present. Councillor Miller. Present. Councillor Sageman. Present. Councillor Veen. Present. Councillor White. We have quorum.
Thank you. Thank you. We acknowledge that this land on which we are gathered today is part of the ancestral land of the Chippewa, Odawa, and Potawatomi peoples referred to collectively as the Anishinaabe. It is through the connection of the Anishinaabe with the spirit of the land, water, and air that we recognize their unique cultures, traditions, and values. Together as treaty people, we have a shared responsibility to act with respect for the environment that sustains all life, protecting the future for those generations to come. I would ask members of council to declare pecuniary interest now or any time during the meeting. Councillor Loosely, please.
Yeah, thank you. I just have like to declare a conflict of interest on the budget, section 9, pages 15 to 27 EMS, and anywhere else I may have missed within the budget, due to the fact that my son works part-time for the EMS, and I have given a copy to the clerk. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bean.
Not working. There we go. Thank you, Warden. I declare conflict with Tourism Sarnia Lambton as my son works there.
Thank you. Seeing no others, I'd look for a motion to go in camera for the reasons noted on the agenda. Councillor Atkinson and Councillor Hand, all in favor. That's carried. We'll meet in committee room 3. Welcome back. Please join me for a moment of silent reflection, please. Thank you. I'd ask Mr. Beauchamp to rise and report motions of in camera, please.
Thank you, Warden. I can report that Lambton County Council met in closed session today to review matters for approximately 3 minutes. The first was to review the Lambton County Council closed session minutes dated November 26th of 2025. The second was to review the Committee of the Whole in-camera minutes dated January 21st, 2026, which included to receive a report regarding the acquisition of property in the Township of Don Euphemia, to provide instructions regarding the potential acquisition of property related to the roundabout project at County Roads 8 and 22, to approve a reduction in the number of units required under a restrictive covenant agreement between the county and Indwell Community Homes with respect to Indwell's development on George Street in the city of Sarnia, and to receive a report regarding the acquisition of property in the city of Sarnia.
Thank you, Mr. Beauchamp. Item number 8, minutes of open session council of November 26th, 2025. I look for a motion to adopt the minutes. Councillor Atkinson moves. Councillor Cook seconds. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Item number 9, information reports. We have one report here from the CAO regarding the County of Lambton Community Development Corporation Research Park. Look for either a mover and a seconder or a discussion. Councillor Veen, please. Moves. Seconded by Councillor Loosely. All in favor? That's carried. Item number 10, 2026 budget deliberations. I turn the floor over to Ms. Bettridge, please.
Good morning. Thank you, Warden Marriott. The county's 2026 draft budget is before council for consideration and decision-making. As you remember, on January 21st, the 2026 draft budget was presented to the Committee of the Whole, proposing a 3.48% increase on the levy. There are 2 items not included in the budget, not considering the 3.48% increase. These are the items included in tab 2, the items referred to budget. These items will require a motion to bring forward in order to be incorporated into the budget. The first item being the City of Sarnia Planning Department cost recoveries. There's been 3 alternatives provided. The original request being a financial request of $335,000, which represents a 0.33% increase on the levy. There's also 2 alternatives provided. The first alternative being a staggered start date for the positions requested. This requires a $262,000 financial requirement, representing a 0.26% increase on the levy. The second alternative suggested is further staggering the start dates, delaying the planner to 2027. This financial request is for $216,000 or 0.21% on the levy. The second item in the items referred is the CLCDC refinancing options. Both scenarios request the refinancing of the $17 million mortgage, one being over a 15-year term with the grant request of almost $1.4 million, representing a 1.34 increase on the levy. This second alternative is over a 30-year term, which requires a grant request of $845,000 or an 0.83% on the levy. Beyond the items referred, we will continue moving through the tabs on an exception basis. This means that any additions or reductions will require a motion in order to be incorporated into the budget. If there are no changes, we continue moving through. Divisional Support Services staff are here tracking the changes with our budget minutes programs that you will see on the screen, so you'll be able to see the live changes happening. As in the past, votes on any motion on the floor will be recorded unless there are objections. Councillor Bradley, do we have your consent to note you as the member requesting the recorded vote?
I'm sorry, I don't understand that request.
Do we have your consent? We need to record who's requested the recorded vote. Typically, we signify you. Is that okay with you?
Okay, I understand. Thank you. Yes, that's fine.
The department managers are here to answer any questions that you may have. If you do seek their advice, please, department managers, come up to the front here beside Lisa. Also, there's a second day available for deliberation if required, February 18th. We also have a bylaw available for approval when we are happy to set the budget for 2026. And as a reminder, 1% increase on the levy is $1 million, $17,000. Back to you, Warden Marriott.
Thank you, Ms. Betteridge. So the first item to be considered is the City of Sarnia planning. Look for, oh, sorry, Councillor White, please.
Thank you. I'll move the alternative option 2, the second one, the extended staggered.
Okay, it's seconded by Councillor McRoberts. Discussion? Councillor Ferguson, please.
Just to clarify, if somewhere there's an overage or money left over because of somebody retirements or they can't hire somebody, would that money stay within that planning department reserves and not into general reserves?
Yeah, so would Ms. Nada like to comment on that, please?
Good morning, everyone. Through Warden Marriott. Yeah, the City of Sarnia has agreed to setting up a reserve, if that is what the wish is. But I will say that we are going to be working with the City of Sarnia to establish the funding, like a regime or a reconciliation, to ensure that it's properly being monitored and that we're reporting back so that we always know what's happening with that funding that is between the city and county agreement.
Any other questions, comments before I call the question? Councillor Hand, please.
Just a question around the superintendent planning and development services position. So that's like a senior position. Would that not have come, like, been an internal option? And then it's only a difference in the current salary versus the promotional salary?
Ms. Nada, please.
Thank you. Through Warden Marriott. Our understanding is that it's a 2.0 full-time equivalent. I'm not sure if there's an internal candidate. That's for the City of Sarnia to decide. But our understanding is they do need 2 full-time employees to move forward.
Councillor Case.
Yes, Mr. Warden, through you. I guess my question is, in today's world, where the economy has really slowed down, I guess I'd just like to know the justification to add 2 more. Is there that much more work going on in the City of Sarnia right now that they can't keep up? It'd be interesting to know why this request is coming this time, at this time when things have really slowed down in a lot of places. If I could have an answer to that, I appreciate it.
Ms. Nada, please.
Through Warden Marriott. Our understanding is their rationale is that they do require these employees, hence the ask.
Anyone else? Councillor Atkinson and then Deputy Warden Agar, please.
Through you, Warden, to Ms. Nada. So am I understanding that the City of Sarnia has their own planners, but they need these extra planners because they have some work coming forward? Is that what I'm maybe missing in the presentation?
Ms. Nada, please.
Yes, through Warden Marriott. Our understanding is there are several projects on their docket, and they do require the extra staff to move the development forward.
Follow-up, Councillor Atkinson.
Okay, I understand that, but I know there are some our fellow municipalities that don't have planners, that are only there part-time, and they have a need as well. So if Sarnia has all this work lined up, can they not get their own planners? Just a question.
Ms. Nada, please.
Through Warden Marriott, it's through the spirit of the city-county agreement where we are to fund their planning department, hence the ask why it comes to us and they don't fund the employees separately.
Deputy Warden Agar.
Kind of the same questions I have. So this is for work that's now, not down the road, and you can't go out and get your own planner to go along with it, like if you need assistance. That's kind of the way I thought it always worked. Thanks.
Ms. Nada, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Nothing else to add, just that they don't hire their own planning department. It's an extension of ours, more or less. It's through the city-county agreement where they have, we provide the service to 10 municipalities and they take care of their own building and planning.
If there's no one else, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion? Oh, yep, sorry. Mr. Beauchamp, I'll ask you to take the vote, please.
Thank you, Warden. I'll wait for the voting system to pop up here. We'll start the vote with Councillor Atkinson.
Okay, I'll have the motion read back. Please, Mr. Beauchamp.
The motion was moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor McRoberts to support option number 2 presented by the City of Sarnia, which was funding in a total cost of a 26% increase, valuing $1,155,519 for 2026.
Is that clear enough, Councillor Hand? Okay. Please, Mr. Beauchamp, if you could proceed with the vote.
Councillor Atkinson? No. I have a no. Councillor Bouchy? Yes. I have a yes. Councillor Bradley?
Yes.
I have a yes. Councillor Broad? Yes. I have a yes. Councillor Case? No. I have a no. Councillor Cook? Yes. I have a yes. Councillor Dennis? Yes. I have a yes. Councillor Ferguson? Yes. I have a yes. Councillor Hand? Yes. I have a yes. Councillor Loosely?
Yes.
I have a yes. Councillor McRoberts?
Yes.
I have a yes. Councillor Miller? No. No. Councillor Sageman? Yes. I have a yes. Councillor Bean? Yes. I have a yes. Councillor White? Yes. I have a yes. Deputy Warden Agar? No. I have a no. Warden Marriott?
Yes.
I have a yes. That passes.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Nada. That brings us to the CLCDC Research Park Grant Request Alternatives. Look for Director Councillor Bradley.
Yes, I'll move the option with the 30-year amortization.
Do we have a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Loosely. Discussion? Councillor Ferguson.
This has been ongoing for quite a number of years now. There is really no light at the end of the tunnel. We do have to, I think, fund them, but I think there should be some changes done for us to agree to the funding. I would like to have a discussion on changing the governance model to take it to a business model and not have politicians on it, to put on senior staff from Lambton County and have them go out and look for new people for their governance board and to report back to us, have that changed by in the next year. They will have their AGM, I think, in the next 2 or 3 months. We won't be able to have that in place for that. But I think we need restrictions on the money, how to do it, and to have some changes on the governance model. Discussion we could have on that, please. Thank you.
So that is a different issue than the motion on the floor. But so I think the discussion should be limited on this until we deal with this. Follow-up, Councillor Ferguson?
I will not be voting for any money going through until we settle the governance issue. Thank you.
Councillor Dennis?
Thank you, Warden Marion. I cannot, in good conscience, commit any more money to this endeavor. We've given them $11 million, and they keep coming back for more. I certainly cannot fault the original concept. I truly believe it was done with all the best intentions, but it simply hasn't been a successful endeavor. And sometimes people must realize that you got to know when to take your losses and run. The building is worth 18 million. There's 17 million against it. We've given them $11 million. And when I say that we've given them, the taxpayers have given them. And if this was a private enterprise, if they went to a bank, my guess is the bank would turn them away. They can come to us because and again, in a small community, sometimes people have a hard time separating business from the emotion and the business side of things. I was cheering for them. No one wants to see something like this fail, but the fact of the matter is they've segued so far away from what the original mission was. If this was a private enterprise owned by a private entrepreneur, they would have closed the doors long ago. And I know, like, it's a very, very easy. COVID has been a very, very easy excuse, but this place was having problems long before COVID. And the only time I believe it's ever been somewhat profitable or somewhat respectable is when we had a call center in there. The fact of the matter is we're throwing good money after bad, and it's turning into almost like a Lehman Brothers type of bailout. In all good conscience, I can't see giving them any more money. It just seems like some people had this dream that maybe we should start this up and maybe try to diversify our economy. It hasn't turned into that. It's basically we've become like property managers, basically. And there's, in business, sometimes you just, whether you're an investor or in business, sometimes you just gotta cut your losers and move on to the next project. It's just, they come back every year with their hand out saying, please, sir, can I have some more? We have to face reality. And the taxpayers elected us to be good stewards of their money, especially in today's economy. This is not good business, and it's not good. We're not being good stewards of the taxpayers' money by keep on flogging a dead horse.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dennis, I have Councillor White and then Councillor Ferguson. Sorry, Councillor Bean.
Thank you, Warden. I gotta agree with Councillor Dennis. And if this motion fails, I think what we gotta do is we have to ask them to come back with a different plan. I think there's gotta be a better solution than what they're asking for. And this is just a white elephant, and it's somewhere along the line we have to stop the bleeding. So I would make a motion if this one fails, that we send it back to them and they can come back in a month's time and let us know what other plan that they can come forward with.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ferguson, please.
To follow up with Councillor Beans there, just to get the right order how this could work. So we don't look at governance model now, but if we defeat the motion on the floor, to come back in a month means we can't pass the budget today, or can we? And secondly, could they come back then with a new governance model to us at that time? Where could we start to look at the governance model? At what stage?
So to answer your question, the budget can be passed today, one way or the other. Whether, doesn't matter what happens with this motion. We can pass the budget, and then down the road, there's options. So, any other discussion before I call the question? Oh, sorry, Councillor Bradley.
Yeah. As someone who's been involved in this since the beginning of the creation, I think there's some amnesia in the room. Research Park has come repeatedly to the council after when COVID developed, saying increase our base funding. And we have brought a number of models in the last year or two to this council. And this is the best we have to offer, which would get us out of debt over a period of time. And it is turning around. Dr. Ablon's done a great job in trying to fill the space up that we lost during COVID. And that's not an excuse, it's the reality. You look at Nova and Enbridge and how they downsized. And it's a mixture of uses. The commercial clients are helping to pay for the research side. And it's sad that 2 years ago, we did not approach, we could have expanded. We had lots of money from the feds to put a wet lab, expand it dramatically, but we didn't want to come to county council and ask for that money, even though it would have changed the park's direction and increased its viability. The problem from day one in the last 5 or 6 years is the base funding. Look what we give to TSL base funding with, I would say, very little accountability or results that you can prove. In this case, this is gardening. We continue to garden, and there was a report sent to county council about how many jobs have been created that are directly related to research. And I, as chair of the board, I can say, I don't know what else we'd bring back to you. We spent the last year and a half working with Western, working with people who are experts on research parks, and they're all going through the same problem in London and across the country and across North America. But we've managed to stabilize it and turn it around. And a base grant that fits what we're asking for will make a difference in this amateurization. So, the governance model, it was set up by the county to be totally independent. It has Western on there, it has the warden, it has myself, it has the deputy warden, and it has some people from the private sector that are there to give advice. So I don't know, if you want to make it into a council committee, that defeats the whole purpose of how it was set up to move quickly and to be independent and to be run in a proper business-like manner. We have dealt with the circumstances that have been given to us through the last 5 years, and this is the plan that will help us exit from those issues. I have nothing else to bring back to you because we've spent over a year and a half working on this plan that's presented to you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions before I call the question? Councillor Ferguson.
I didn't quite have clarity. When would we look at the governance model on this? Can that be another meeting down the road to look at governance, how that would work?
There is an AGM coming. It has to be done, I believe, before May.
And do we have a say in that as the shareholder?
Mr. Tifo, could you answer that, please?
Yes, thank you. If I understand correctly, the question is to say, hey, look, the organization has come to the county for financial assistance on a number of occasions over the last number of years, and in response to that, you want to take a look at governance and the governance model. You have essentially two paths to that. The one path is as a funder today. If you say, hey, I'm happy to provide further assistance subject to a condition that there be a governance review and further discussion on that. That's one path. And then, of course, the second path is County Council sits as members, therefore shareholders, of the CLCDC Corporation. And at the AGM, which is typically scheduled in between now and let's say May or June of this year, at that point in time, you do directly address the board because you elect the board. So the discussion on board governance, board makeup, and all that stuff, there's really two paths. One as a funder, technically, and then secondly, as the members of the corporation.
Follow-up, Councillor Ferguson.
So today we take an amendment to the motion on the floor to have the governance model looked at. Am I correct on that?
Correct.
If I understand, again, the question correctly, if the question is, if we are to support, for instance, the funding model that's being requested, subject to a further discussion and review of the governance, then that probably should be an amendment. Or technically, if you do address the motion that's currently on the floor, you could bring forward a second motion to say, hey, look, we'd like a governance discussion.
Councillor Case. We're good. Okay. So that explains it, the two options there. If there's no further discussion, I'd look for a call the question by recorded vote. Correct. We have single motion on the floor. Councillor Atkinson.
Clerk, read that motion for us, please, before we vote.
Mr. Beauchamp, please.
Thank you, Warden. The motion on the floor, moved by Councillor Bradley, seconded by Councillor Loosely, is to support option number 2, which is the $3 million for 5 years based on a 30-year mortgage. We'll start the vote with Councillor Bouchy. I have a yes. Councillor Bradley?
Yes.
I have a yes. Councillor Broad? I have a no. Councillor Case? No. I have a no. Councillor Cook? No. I have a no. Councillor Dennis? No. I have a no. Councillor Ferguson? No. I have a no. Councillor Hand? Yes. I have a yes. Councillor Loosely? Yes. I have a yes. Councillor McRoberts? No. I have a no. Councillor Miller? No. I have a no. Councillor Sageman? No. I have a no. Councillor Veen? I have a no. Councillor White? No. I have a no. Deputy Warden Agar? No. I have a no. Councillor Atkinson? No. I have a no. Warden Marriott? I have a no. That motion's defeated.
Okay. Are there any other motions at this time? Considering that Councillor Ferguson has a potential motion, did you want to deal with that now, Councillor Ferguson?
I'd like to put a motion on the floor to review the governance model and update it as needed. How that governance will change, I don't think I want to say, but I do think we have to remove some of the politicians from it and go to a business model. We still have representation from the county level, as we are the major fund holder, and from the county level staff is where I'd have the representation from. Now, we won't be doing that today, but that's the direction I want to see the review go towards. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Oh, sorry. Seconded by Councillor Dennis, and then questioned by Councillor Bradley.
Yeah, a couple of points, not to pre-argue the motion, but the county has a full team with that board. Mr. Tebow's on there, the treasurer's on there, and they give advice to this board on a regular basis. Also, I just don't know what option is now about our cash flow and what to move forward with the park. And we also have looked in our last year at other governance models. I'm not opposed to that, but you're going to have to change the original agreement. You're going to have to change all those things. Those governance models we can make available to you. And it's moving somewhat in the direction of what Councillor Ferguson say. But there are more people on there who are not elected than there are who are elected. And it was the county that wanted the warden and the deputy warden on the board, and they are there. And my experience has been they've been very good members of the board and very committed to it. So where we go from here today on the actual operation of the park, I will have to convene an emergency meeting of the board because it's now a cash flow issue. And can we even continue without money to support us to meet our needs?
Okay, Councillor Case.
Not to confuse the matter, Mr. Warden, but I do think that's a good point. The organization still has to be able to fund itself until we come to a conclusion on this. We talked about one of the recommendations was sending it back to the board to come back with maybe a new model, something different than coming to county council with their handout every year, whatever the case may be. I still think there's some merit in the board going back and doing that again. I know that Mayor Bradley has said they've done it time and time again, but I think there's merit. But to cut them off financially right now, I don't think is fair either. So we need to find a way to be able to fund them until we have this discussion around how the board functions, how it's made up. I'm still a firm believer and a strong supporter of a model like Blue Water Power at the end of the day, where it's non-political. Board members that come with expertise to the table and run that organization. So I am supportive of a new model. But again, my other question when it comes to the new model is, the AGM is normally where that discussion would take place. Are we having this discussion in the wrong arena today?
Good point, Councillor Case. So the motion on the floor, Councillor Ferguson, did you want to?
I think it's to put forward a motion for a review of the governance model and to go a bit farther on the money. They're both correct. They need money. Just a question, the $900,000 interest-free loan we gave last year, is that being paid back this year? And if so, should we just leave that there in place? Because there would be money in, money out. Would that satisfy for now for an interim money going out to satisfy their short-term needs and look at the review?
In my mind, the motion on the floor can be dealt with either way and then discuss the monetary part of it. That's the way I see it, unless somebody wants to do it different. Councillor Ferguson.
And so I do want to do just the one motion, but just to clarify for a further motion afterwards, the $900,000 was being paid back to us now, but we could leave that in place. Would that solve their short-term needs?
Did somebody want to answer that? Mr. Tifo, would you be able to?
Yes, so my understanding, and I've clarified that with the executive director of the CLCDC, Ms. Albion, if you were to move forward with the proposal, this option would see, and you just voted it down, but it would have seen a renewed or revised mortgage at $17 million amortized over 30 years. And if that had been approved within the $17 million, there would have been a return of $900,000 to the county to repay last year's loans. And so that money would have come back. So at this point in time, given that decision, that's currently not on the table. And so put that aside. In terms of the governance aspect of things, you could always essentially communicate that. I'm not sure there's a resolution required at this point in time or a motion required, but you could say, hey, look, we're looking at some movement on governance review or whatever, governance renewal of the organization. So I think, does that answer your question, Councillor Ferguson?
Yes, so we could deal with the governance review on motion. We could come back to the floor in a few minutes to discuss the $900,000 separately. And with that, though, if we don't move, we did not move the 17-odd million for the 30 years, would that have to be reintroduced as a separate motion for so much money? Just, we're going to be caught here in a few minutes if we're not careful on not moving forward with anything.
Mr. Tifo, please.
So two-pronged question again. In terms of the motion, if the ask of this body is to say, hey, look, we'd like you to take a look at your governance model and perhaps suggest something, taking into account some of these factors, that could be a motion that you can adopt and essentially communicates to the CLCDC to take a look at this. And I think Councillor Bradley just mentioned that I believe there was some exercise at some point in time on that, and they can come back to this body or to the AGM. With respect to the cash flow issue, that's a separate issue that would need to be addressed either today or fairly shortly.
Councillor Dennis.
Thank you, Warden Marriott. See, what's just transpired here in the last few minutes kind of gives you an idea of just how bad things are. When Councillor Bradley, and I can understand why he is concerned, in private sector, if your money drained up or you were concerned about cash flow, you would probably go to one of the big 5 institutional banks. And that's where you'd go. But in his case, apparently we're the only ones that are foolish enough to lend them money. That speaks a lot. I would bet, I'd bet a steak dinner that if they went to a traditional bank and laid the cards out on the bank manager's desk, they would probably get laughed out of the room. So we're the only ones we're the only ones that are, I don't want to use the term stupid, but we're the only ones that are willing to give them the money. Because again, business and personal, and again, we have a responsibility to protect the taxpayers. And by giving them a lifeline, by throwing more money at a losing proposition is not good money management. It's not good for the taxpayers. To feed a dream that is simply turning into a nightmare. It's not good. It's not good management of the taxpayers' money. It's simply not. And I know there's a lot of people that have put a lot of sweat equity and they put a lot of hard work in this. And you know what? I'm not faulting anybody. If you don't shoot, you don't score. A lot of very successful people in this world have tried things and they failed. But the thing is, the fact of the matter is, you got to, as they say, you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. And now is the time to realize that you have to fold them. It's that simple. And I'm not trying to, mock anyone or whatever, but we've given it enough time, and we got to know when to turn off the money tap. It's that simple.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dennis. I have Councillor Broad.
Thanks, Warden. I think maybe Dave's motion is a little bit too soon, because if we don't get financing in place, Dave's motion needs nothing. What I would make the motion, my understanding that if they got this 845 that was turned down, they were going to return the 900,000 from last year. Is that correct?
Correct.
So my motion would be for 1 year, they keep the 900,000 so they can operate. Once we do that, then we can go with Dave's option or Dave's motion or anybody else's motion to within the next year to get the modeling done, get the governance done, whatever it is that's required, and let's sit down with this next year. And if nothing has changed, there'll be some tough decisions at that point. I can't sit here today and say it's a good deal to invest 30 years into something that's not working. We're all here sitting around this table to look after Lambton County taxpayers' money. And I'm sorry, but I do not feel that this is a good investment, but I will make the motion that they keep the 900,000 for 1 year's operation. And within that 1 year's time, we'll get the governance and other things that could be requested. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Ferguson, do you wish to leave your motion stand?
My motion comes to the floor later, and the financing has to be done. We don't want to have something really blow up. I would withdraw my motion if I'm allowed to. I would support Al Broad's motion. And as long as I can bring mine back later.
Okay, does the seconder agree? Councillor Dennis, do you agree to withdraw? Okay, so it's withdrawn. Look to Councillor Councillor Bradley again.
Yeah, a couple of points. I appreciate Councillor Broad's motion, and it's probably the best solution at the present time. I certainly will arrange for those governance models to come to the annual general meeting. I do want to correct the record, though. And perhaps Mr. Thibault, I know the treasurer is new, can speak to this also, that the banks had been involved in this all the way through and approving the financing that we've received through the county.
Mr. Tifo, please.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Bradley. The county, and Ms. Bedridge can correct me if I'm wrong, the county is the holder of the debt load. The bank, the CIBC, provides the debt to the county as the main holder of the debt load, which in turn then is flipped over to the CLCDC, and those are how the financing arrangements are made. Ms. Bedridge, am I incorrect on that? I'm not incorrect, correct? I'm not incorrect. I'm correct. And then just to clarify, in terms of the motion, so the motion that you just defeated. So that motion was what we refer to as option 2, which looked to refinance. So the reason the CLCDC is coming to the county to refinance the mortgage is for the reason I've just explained. We are the holder of the debt instrument. So the motion you just defeated had 2 components to it. The first component was to authorize the debt to $17 million, an increased debt to $17 million. And then within that $17 million would be amortized over 30 years, which is an operating cost assessment perspective. And then it had a 5-year sort of contribution from this body. And the 5-year contribution is listed in the CLCDC's presentation. That first year, additional cash requirement would have been roughly $845,000, and then it reduces over the 5 years. So you've just said no to that. If I understand correctly, if there's a seconder to Councillor Broad's motion, it would be to allow the refinancing of $17 million over 30 years, but only commit to the first year of that plan. Okay. So what is it?
Would you like to clarify your motion, Councillor Broad?
My motion is only for a 1-year term, not the 30-year. So it would be that amount from 2025 that they were going to be scheduled to repay if we approve the 845. But I am not interested in a 30-year commitment. I'm interested in a 1-year commitment to allow the board and the other governance issues to be addressed. We'll sit down here next year if we are still elected. Whoever is elected will sit here next year and then hash it out then. But I don't want anything to do with a long-term financing of anything. It'll be a 1-year deal. Thank you.
Would you like to follow up, Mr. Chiefo?
So thank you. So again, the debt would be $17 million amortized over 30 years. The term of the debt, how long the term of the debt agreement, that's a different story. Right now, I believe it was a 5-year term. But the amortization period here is important because if you go into a debt situation of $17 million for only 1 year of amortization, then your principal and interest skyrockets. Here, for cash flow perspective positions, it's $17 million amortized over 30, therefore diluting your operating costs in terms of principal and interest. So if we're going to move forward with these figures, let's say the $900,000, you would effectively have to approve a $17 million amortized over 30 years with a reduced term. Right now, I think the term was 5 years. I don't know what the impact on the 1-year term would be, but I think, unless Ms. Bettridge corrects me, that could be addressed following this meeting, and we can figure that out with the CLCDC. But then you would also, they would return the $900,000. We would use that $900,000 to fund the additional operating expenditures that they have, giving the organization effectively 1 more year to address the questions that County Council has in terms of board governance and whatnot.
Follow up, Councillor Broad.
Yeah, whatever he said. Yeah, that's what I want.
Okay, I have a question with Councillor. Okay, good. So, Mr. Beauchamp, do you want clarification on the motion, or do you have it? Would you like to repeat it, please?
I think what Mr. Thifault said will stand on its own.
I will repeat it. You would be authorizing $17 million debt amortized over 30 years with a 1-year commitment in terms of funding to the CLCDC in the amount not to exceed $900,000, which is the $900,000 that you expect in return once that debt is issued. Ms. Bettridge, are you comfortable with that? Okay, thank you.
Okay, are we ready to vote on that? I'd ask Mr. Beauchamp to start the process, please. Yeah.
The motion was moved by Councillor Broad and seconded by Councillor Veen. We'll start the voting with Councillor Case.
Yes.
I have a yes. Councillor Cook? I have a yes. Councillor Dennis? I have a yes. Councillor Ferguson? I have a yes. Councillor Hand? I have a yes. Councillor Loosely? I have a yes. Councillor McRoberts? I have a yes. Councillor Miller? I have a yes. Councillor Sageman? I have a yes. Councillor Veen? I have a no. Councillor White? I have a yes. Deputy Warden Agar? I have a yes. Councillor Atkinson? I have a yes. Councillor Bushi? I have a yes. Councillor Bradley?
Yes.
I have a yes. Councillor Broad? I have a yes. Warden Marriott? I have a yes. That motion passes.
Okay. That brings us to follow up on tabs, and we start with tab 4. So I should have said tab 3, correct? Oh, I was right, tab 4. Any questions on tab 4? Councillor Bradley.
Yes, Mr. Warden, to the Treasurer, this may not be the right moment, but I'll ask the question. The amount of money going into the affordability housing reserve is being decreased?
Ms. Betteridge, please, or, yeah.
Yes, that's correct. The amount being contributed to the affordable housing was reduced, I believe.
And can you explain to the public how much and why?
Would you like to answer that, Ms. Betteridge, or Mr. Tifo will?
Yep, just maybe provide a little bit of context, 2 points on context. One, when we take a look at the budgets, we take a look at it as what is reasonably required for the following year, identifying actual projects that are undergoing, and there's no current project just yet on the affordable housing portfolio. And the other piece is that last year, the base sum that's included in your budget is the same as the base sum that was included in last year's budget. The additional million in last year's budget was funded in 2 different ways, one of which was $400,000 from a third-party source, and another, the $600,000 at this meeting through your decision-making. So as a member of, as the executive approached this, we looked at it and said, okay, what is it that we reasonably need based on the projects that we anticipate at this point in time? Those are the figures that are before you. But we also took into account what the balance is in that account, and there is a balance in that account of in excess of $3 million, and taking into account that there's no active projects. The second piece is to look at it from a third-party source funding, and our view is that we need to continue pursuing upper-level government funding on these projects, and that is our commitment. So taking into account those factors, balancing sort of the need of the account, raising the appropriate dollars given projects that are currently not on the books, wanting to advocate for additional funding from the right sources that should be funding these types of projects, the upper levels of government, balancing that against the overall budget. We presented you with the same baseline that we had presented last year without the additional million, which I explained just a second ago, was funded here, $600,000 last year, and $400,000 had been funded by a third-party source.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? If not, move to tab 5, please. Tab 6. Seeing nothing, tab 7, Finance, Facilities, and Acquisitions Division. Tab 8, Infrastructure and Development Services Division. Question with Deputy Warden Agar, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I see that the roundabout for Kimball-Betroy line is, the design work is 2026, which I'm very happy to see. Scheduled for 27, but it might be 28. So anyways, it's coming in. I'm very glad of that. In the meantime, at my last OPP board meeting, which some of you were probably at, it was brought to my attention that the intersection is number 2 in fatalities for all of Lambton County, number 1 being the end of 402. So I was just hoping to make a motion for the stop signs that are on that side, if we can switch them up and put the LED ones. A good example is by Imperial Oil Gate. The LED goes right around the outside, and it's really, you can see it for a long ways away. So I would hope that that would help on that until the roundabout gets done. So I would like to make a motion for that.
Okay, and seconded by Councillor Case. I'd ask Mr. Cole to comment, please. Oh, sorry.
Through you, Warden, I understand the request. The county has looked at those LED stop sign modified LED stop signs with the LEDs around the perimeter. The difficulty is that those stop signs are not authorized under the Highway Traffic Act. They are not a legal stop sign. We have advice from our insurance company that we could be at risk if we apply that style of stop sign at those locations. What we could do is come back with an option for further modifications in the meantime. Perhaps something like an on-top flasher, if that's council's request.
Deputy Warden Agar.
I would be in agreement to that, but I was talking to the inspector at my own council meeting on Monday night, and he agreed wholeheartedly that lights on that stop signs would help a whole lot. So whatever you could come up with, I would appreciate it.
But the motion, Deputy Warden, is for a specific thing. Did you want to modify that?
Yeah, we can go with whatever kind of flashing light is available to go on there that everybody would agree to.
So suggest that the manager look at different options.
Yes, that would be good, and bring it back.
Okay, seconder agrees. Thank you. Any other comments before I call the question? Seeing none, do we want this recorded vote as well? No, okay. All in favor of the motion? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Move on to tab 9, please. Public Health Services Division. Yeah, Councillor Case.
So on the infrastructure section of the budget, just some clarification. I know there's been a lot of work done on the Forest Road roundabout option. I'm just wondering, is that something that we see being done this year and constructed this year, or is this something that's going to be probably moved into the next year as well? Just looking for clarification if I could, Mr. Warden.
Good question. Mr. Cole, please.
Through you, Warden. We have the money there. We would like to proceed as quickly as possible. It is possible at this time that we could achieve a construction date this year. It is entirely dependent on our property acquisition and our utility relocation agreements at this time. We are progressing with those, and we appreciate the time that it takes to get those things done properly and in accordance with the proper channels. But if they go smoothly, we could still make that date.
Follow up, Councillor Case.
Yes, Mr. Warden. Well, that's perfectly understandable. Just maybe the only comment I have is keep us in the loop. keep that good communication going and let us know if it is going to happen this year, and then we can be part of the communications plan to roll it out to the residents of Warwick Township, up to Wyoming, Lambton Shores, and others in Lambton County. So if you could keep us in the loop on if it's going to happen this year or not, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I move on from infrastructure, one last chance for questions. Seeing none, tab 9, public health. Deputy Warden Agar.
Thank you. I don't know if I'm in the right tab or not, but I've been receiving quite a few calls from concerned residents about our Lambton Health losing some nursing staff. And I'm just wondering, I don't see much in here about that, but is that a true fact? I'll just start with that.
I'd ask Mr. Churchill, please.
Through you, Warden Marriott, to Deputy Warden Agar. In this 2026 budget, there is a reduction of a 0.5 FTE public health nurse. And we're following county policy and reviewing every vacancy that comes up. And so when that's not an easy decision, but when we make those decisions, we review it with the managers and ensure that we can still deliver on our mandate with that reduced staffing level. So I'm confident that we can do that without reducing service in this case.
Follow up, Deputy Warden.
Yeah, how much does that total to keep that 0.5 job in there?
Mr. Churchill, please.
I would say roughly between $50,000 to $60,000.
I'd like to make a motion to leave that in there so we keep the public health nursing staff at full strength. That's my motion.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Bean. Further discussion? Councillor Bradley?
Can we get an explanation from Mr. Churchill? It's a vacant position?
Mr. Churchill, please.
Through you, Warden Marriott, to Councillor Bradley, yes, that's correct.
So the impact on the services, if it's been vacant, is limited, and isn't that what you're supposed to do when you've got a situation like this?
Mr. Churchill, please.
Through you, Warden Marriott, to Councillor Bradley. Yes, that's what the policy requires. When we have a vacancy, we review it and determine our ability to, whether we need to fill it or not.
Can you say, Mr. Churchill, how long it's been vacant?
Since November 2025 was the retirement.
Thank you.
Councillor Case.
Through you, I guess for me it all comes down to service. And I guess Mr. Churchill has answered the question to a certain extent, but I'll ask the question again. So by not replacing this half FTE, Mr. Churchill, you're confident that the service delivery will not change, it'll still continue to meet the needs and the expectations of public health in Lambton County?
Mr. Churchill, please.
Yes, I'm confident we can continue to deliver the service. Thank you.
Any other questions before I call the question? All those in favor of them, you would like a recorded vote, okay. Mr. Beauchamp, please.
Thank you, Warden. We have a motion on the floor moved by Councillor Agar, seconded by Councillor Veen. A recorded vote was requested by Deputy Warden Agar. We'll start the vote with Councillor White. No. I have a no. Deputy Warden Agar? Yes. I have a yes. Councillor Atkinson? Yes. I have a yes. Councillor Bouchy? Yes. I have a yes. Councillor Bradley?
No.
I have a no. Councillor Broad? No. I have a no. Councillor Case? No. I have a no. Councillor Cook? No. I have a no. Councillor Dennis? No. I have a no. Councillor Ferguson? No. I have a no. Councillor Hand? No. I have a no. Councillor McRoberts? No. I have a no. Councillor Miller? I have a yes. Councillor Sageman? No. I have a no. Councillor Bean? I have a yes. Warden Marriott? No. I have a no. That motion's defeated.
Okay, that if there's one last option for questions, Councillor Hand, please.
You've looked at the situation, there's retirement, you can move on without losing any services, but at such time as there's an impact on what you're able to deliver, you would come back and potentially put the 0.5 back into the resource plan?
Mr. Churchill, please.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Hand, through Warden Marriott to you. Certainly, if we weren't able to meet those demands, we always have the option of coming back to council and asking for an increase. And yeah, appreciate the question.
Okay, I'd ask that we move to tab 10, Social Services Division. Councillor Bradley, please.
Yes, a question to staff. Where are we at on the Melrose Place and the exit strategy on that property?
Ms. Fitzpatrick, please.
Through you, Warden, to Councillor Bradley, we continue to monitor the shelter usage at Melrose. Unfortunately, it's not good timing right now with the cold weather alerts, and in the middle of winter, the usage is still very high. So I think it's premature for me to give an estimate as to whether or not a spring closure is possible. Certainly, it is our intention to report back to council in a couple of months about the usage and what we envision for the future of that property. Okay, again, it's still our plan to move forward with winding that down as soon as possible, but it's a bit premature to say one way or the other right now.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else for social services? If not, I'll ask you to move to tab 11, long-term care. Seeing no questions, move to tab 12, cultural services. No questions for tab 12? If not, we'll move to 13, non-tangible capital assets. No questions on 13? I'd ask that we move to 14. Reserves. Councillor Case, please.
Yes, Mr. Warden, if I could, I know we've added a little bit of money to the budget this time. Is anybody keeping a current calculation of where we are? We started off at one point where we are today with the increase that we put into the budget.
I'd ask Ms. Betteridge, please.
Yes, the current increase is at 4.6%.
Thank you.
Anything else for tab 14? Seeing none, move to tab 15. Oh, sorry, Deputy Warden Agar.
That is 4.5 now? How, it was 3.5 at the start. How's there been $1 million put in?
Amount for CLCDC was, yeah.
Okay, seeing no other questions, one last chance. I believe that completes our tabs. We will pass the budget with the notice of bylaws once we get there. And that moves us to item number 11, committee minutes, committee of the whole of January the 21st. The first two motions were appointments of chair and vice chair. Motion 3 was appointing audit committee. Motion 4 was the agricultural advisory committee. 5 was the Accessibility Advisory Committee. 6, the Woodlands Hearing Board. 7 was presentations. Motion 8 was under Infrastructure and Development Services. 9 was information reports for infrastructure. And 10 was report regarding Lambton County's land stewardship program. And 11 was regarding appointment bylaw for building inspectors. 12 was under Cultural Services Division, correspondence. 13 was consolidation of Port Lambton and Sombre libraries. 14 was the Museums, Gallery, and Archives collection. And 15 was regarding Watford Library redevelopment. 16 was under long-term care occupancy from January to December of 2025. 17 was corporate services, as well as 18, and 19 was finance facilities acquisitions. 20 was social services, and in camera was 21, 22, 23, and 24, 25, and 26, and adjournment was 27. I'll look for a motion to adopt those minutes, please. Councillor Broad, seconded by Councillor Atkinson. All in favor? That's carried, thank you. Item number 12, other businesses. Are there any other business today? Councillor Broad, please.
Thanks, Warden. Now that we have the budget done, I have a question for Stefan. I see the TSL that their final year for their agreement is now. What is the process to develop a new agreement? And is it this council or is it the new council? Who approves it? Does it come back to council? Those type of questions.
Mr. Tifo, please.
Yes, thank you. I just want to confirm the date where that agreement, when that agreement expires. If you would just bear with me for 2 seconds. Yes, it expires on March 31st, 2027, so next year. And so that would come back to the next council for decision-making on that. And typically what we would do is bring back that agreement for council's consideration at that point in time.
Follow up, Councillor Broad.
Just to clarify, in that agreement, is there any timelines that we have to give them in order to make changes? I'm going to be very honest with the county council. I was not impressed with TSL's presentation at our last council meeting. Totally not impressed at all. And I think there needs to be some changes in that agreement. Is there a timeline that we have to give them to make any kind of financial changes or anything like that?
Mr. Tifo, please.
Yeah, if memory serves me correctly, within the agreement, within the term of the agreement, so that is any changes prior to March 31st, 2027, you would have a termination clause within the agreement, which is roughly 6 months. Well, not roughly 6 months, it's a 6 months termination clause. But to make changes come new decision-making for a new agreement entirely, there's really no advance notice, but one would assume that we would have those discussions well in advance so that they're prepared as well.
Councillor Case.
So just to follow up, Mr. Warden, on that, so Mr. Thibault, to make a motion now to put that 6-month timeline in place to give notice to the organization, is that something we should do professionally to let them know that there's maybe potential changes coming? Or do we just wait and deal with it at budget time or once we get their presentation for funding the next time around, the next council? Just wanted to know, because if we need a motion now, I'm happy to give it, because I too was not very happy with the presentation.
Mr. Tifo, please.
Thank you. It's difficult to answer that question. I guess I can answer it in the most practical way. Your comments today is probably heads up enough rather than requiring a motion.
Councillor Dennis, please.
Thank you, Warden Marriott. Is it too late for me to make a motion that we move $1,016,000 from reserves to reduce our levy by from 4.65% to 3.65%?
It's not too late. I'll look for a seconder for that motion. Deputy Warden Agar seconds. Discussion. Sorry.
If I can assist in that regard, if I understand, if there's interest to reduce the levy impact from the current 4.6% to something under 4%, and the significant impact in the 4.6%, and Ms. Bedridge can correct me if I'm wrong, is really the allocation to the CLCDC of 0.83%. If you wish to do that, then the assistance this year could be funded through the return of the loan monies. And therefore, those would have gone to reserves, but rather than contribute to reserves, use those to fund it. If you want to essentially amend that motion to say fund CLCDC this year by the use of the $900,000 that's returned, and therefore by reserves, that would reduce that number, that 4.6%, by 0.83%. I think that's what you're getting to? Okay.
So would you like to alter your motion then? Okay, and the seconder is okay with that? Sorry, Councillor Bradley?
Yeah, I speak of the mayor of a city where the council has reduced the reserves down to the point we have no room to move on any major issue. What is the status of the reserves? And I understood from past reports that the reserves are not where they should be for a county of this size. Is that correct?
Yeah. Ms. Betridge, would you like to comment, please?
Yes, that's correct. Our reserves are typically identified as low in comparison to our peers. In relation to this specific issue, given that we already have $900,000 earmarked for CLCDC's loan, if we did proceed with this motion, it would essentially be a wash, so the balance would be largely unaffected.
But again, you're reducing the reserves, so your maneuverability in the future is much more limited as it equates. We got big asks in for housing, matching funds with the feds, province, and some other issues that relates to infrastructure. And my concern, this next council is going to be in a position where they can't, and that's what happened with the research park I mentioned earlier. Because we didn't have the money, we couldn't move forward on a massive opportunity to improve the place.
I have Councillor Broad and then Councillor Dennis.
My apologies to council. I thought that's what we were doing anyways. I think a lot of us sitting around this table thought that 900,000 was going to be used to fund it. So I think, when the treasurer mentioned the 4.6 caught me off guard. And then I went through some information so what has been introduced by Bill, I'm 100% in favor, because that's what I thought the motion was that I made to start with. Thank you.
Okay, so Ms. Betridge, I'd ask, would you like to clarify those numbers now?
Well, in the items referred, it was indicate to come from levy, so I think that's where the confusion came from. If you'd like it to come from reserves, we can modify that.
I believe that's the intention of the, and that is a motion, so.
Sorry, my apologies. And in Sarnia's case, we transferred almost $10 million out of reserves to reduce our levy, which would have been almost 13%. Down to 3.1%. So we're talking apples and oranges. That's altogether different. So that's altogether different. So, but these gentlemen have certainly they understood what I was getting at in the first place.
Mr. Tifo is going to clarify.
Yep, just to clarify, I think that was the understanding earlier, so we're clarifying it that there'd be no levy impact with the one-year assistance to CLCDC given the return of the loans. And if that's the case, and again, I went to law school because I was not really good at math, but that takes us to 3.77, right? Ms. Blackstock, is that 3.77 with the city piece added? 3.72, there you go. Math isn't my forte.
Okay. Councillor McRoberts.
We're moving on. We voted on that or no?
Yeah, we're going to. Oh, sorry. If there's no other questions, we'll call the vote on motion on the floor. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Councillor McRoberts.
I would like to bring some recognition to the success of the Girls Silver Stick. It was incredible. We have more teams on the Girls Silver Stick than we do on the boys. The hotels in Point Edward, businesses in Sarnia, they traveled all through the township. It was fantastic. So I'd just like to say that the board that organized it, they were fantastic, and they recognized by having all female leadership out there for them to see, to recognize that they can do anything. So successful, and thank you very much for bringing that to our city every time.
Thank you for that. Any other business? Seeing none, that brings us to number 13, notice of bylaws. Mr. Tifo, please. Or sorry, Mr. Beauchamp, please.
Thank you, Warden Marriott. It is moved by Councillor Broad and seconded by Councillor Case that bylaws number 1 through 5 of 2026 as circulated be taken as being read a first and a second time.
All in favor? That's carried.
It is moved by Councillor Case and seconded by Councillor Broad that bylaws number 1 through 5 of 2026 as circulated be taken as being read a third and final time.
All in favor? That's carried. I'd just like to, at this time, thank Council for today's lively discussion, and also thank staff for the hard work. I know they've been working on this since the fall, and your commitment is not going unnoticed. Thank you. Seeing nothing else, look for a motion to adjourn until the next, Councillor Loosely, please.
Yeah, thank you, Warden Merritt. I just want to mention I'm thrilled also with the staff and this council on completing the budget so quickly. This is the earliest that I could remember in 7 years. Thank you.
Yes, that's been a it's been a good move to it's put a lot of pressure on staff, but it's good for the lower tier municipalities. Anything else before I look for a motion to adjourn until the next meeting, which will be held Wednesday, March 4th, with in-camera session to commence at 9 a.m. Councillor Broad moves, seconded by Councillor Bean. All in favor? That's carried. Please join me in the singing of O Canada.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land.